Hello friends, welcome to the Postman tutorial series from Software Testing Help. In this tutorial, we will see pre and post request scripts in Postman. As part of the agenda, we will be covering what are pre-request and post-request scripts, how we can add pre-request scripts. We'll see how we can add pre-request scripts and test or post-request scripts at collection level. And finally, we can see that what all we can do to debug with Postman console. So let's get started. First, let's understand the request flow of a Postman request. So once the request execution starts, it first executes any pre-request script that's associated with the request. Then the request is executed. Once the response is received, any post-request scripts that are associated with the request gets executed. And finally, any assertions that are there in with the request, they get executed. Now, similarly, if we have any collection level scripts associated with a request, that is the collection of which the request is part of, then collection level scripts, pre and post scripts take place or take precedence before the actual pre request and post request scripts that are associated with the request. So the flow goes like at the start, first the collection level pre script executes. Then the same flow continues. Once response is received, then first collection level assertions or postscripts get executed, and finally the normal flow of execution. So let's get started with an example in the Postman console application itself. So I have a collection with three requests: register, get, and login user. We'll be using a fake data API that is publicly available, which is https request response.in, that is request.in. It provides some publicly accessible API endpoints that can be used for testing purposes. So there are these three endpoints. First one, register, is used to register a user with request body as email and password. Second is get user with user ID. And third one is login user with login credentials as body like email and password. So first we'll see how we can add a pre-request script at the request level. So let's see that in this get user, we can see that this 4 or user ID is an actual request parameter. So we'll try to fetch this value from a local parameter or variable named random val, and we'll add a pre-request script to populate this random value, which will be essentially a random integer number between 1 to 10. So to add any pre-request script, you need to go to pre-request script tab of the request itself. So here, since the Postman sandbox runs on a Node.js based environment, you can use or write any JavaScript code logic here, which can be executed as part of the pre-request script. So I have a JavaScript code handy to generate a random value between 1 to 10. I'll just paste it for the interest of time. And what we are essentially doing here is calculating a random variable using a math library that generates a random number between 1 and 10, and I am setting this random value to a local variable named random val. So now what we'll expect is once the request is executed, it will first execute the pre-request script, then it will replace the value of this random val in the request itself, and then finally it will execute the request. So let's get started. I'll simply hit send on this request, and we can see that we got the data for ID 5. That means the random value that was generated was ID 5. Let's try hitting it multiple times, and we can see that we'll get different values of ID like ID 8, ID 9, and ID 1. So that means our pre-request script is getting executed. So that's how you can add any kind of scripting logic here in pre-request script, like adding request headers or any such logic which is required, or where you need to update or edit the request body before the request is actually sent. All those things can be done as part of pre-request script. Now let's try adding collection level pre-request scripts and collection level tests and see the order of execution using the Postman console debugger. So to add pre-request scripts at the collection level, you can simply right click the collection and click edit. Here there is a tab called pre-request scripts, and this pre-request script is a collection level pre-request scripts. What this means is, for every request that is present in the collection, these pre-request scripts will get executed. And similarly for the test or post request script, if we add any test here, then for every request that gets executed inside this collection, the test itself will get executed. So let's add a pre-request script, and the ideal candidates here is like some common logic that you want to apply to all the requests that are present in the collection. So for example, like if you want to add a header of say content type is application JSON to all the requests in the body. So instead of adding pre-request script individually to all the requests, we can simply mention the pre-request script here and it will actually get added to all the requests that are present in the collection. So I have a sample code already ready here, and here what are we trying to do is we are trying to add a request header named content type with value as application JSON. Again, this is not a limited use case. There are like lots and lots of use case, but again it's just to illustrate how you can utilize pre-request scripts at collection level. So similarly we'll add a test as well, and again tests are like common tests that you want to apply to all the requests. For instance, if we want to check that the status code of all the request executions is say suppose 200, so for that we don't want to write the test in each and every request, but we can write a test at collection level. So let's write a status code test here, and to save this we can just click update. Now we know that collection level scripts have got added here. Now let's try running this register user request, and we can see that it has returned id 4. Now since we didn't had individual test in the request, but we still see a test result status is 200, that means it's the collection level test that's getting executed. Now in order to see what happened in the pre-request, like we cannot see here what were the request headers that got sent, the Postman console debugger comes to the rescue. That debugger is nothing but it keeps track of all the requests that are getting executed through the Postman application, and it essentially captures all the request parameters as well as the response data like response headers, text, status code, and response timings, etc. To open the Postman console, you can see the bottom left there is a tool icon, and this is the Postman console. We can see this Postman console is nothing but a kind of console window. So let's try hitting a request and see if it gets captured in the Postman console. So I'll click send here, and let's see what data gets captured in the Postman console. Yes, so we hit an HTTP post endpoint with URL as API register, and you can see that it captures all the request and response data. So we can see that request header, content type, application JSON, went with it. Request body is something that is already main set, and response body is something that we see on the Postman console. But now any pre-request script related data that we want to see can be seen from this Postman console. So let's try executing the get user request where we were fetching a random val. Now in order to see that this random val is getting generated or not, we can also do a console operation like console.log random. What this will do is essentially print the value of this random variable that got generated, like it's a random value between 1 and 10. But on the Postman console or the Postman application itself, you won't be able to see any such console logs. You can just see the Postman response. But on the Postman console or the Postman console logger, once you click send here, the data will be captured in here. So if you see here, this 7 is the nothing but the actual value of that variable that got created, and you can see that the request that was formed by replacing the environment variable or local variable is user slash 7, that is the random variable. So this way you can actually see that your pre-request script got executed successfully and the actual request was made with that data. So that's it for this tutorial. Thank you.